Good morning. I am Henry Kelly. I work at Georgia Power Company, and I've had the pleasure to work with the team at GPE for the last year on behalf of my CEO, Paul Bowers. And I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education to welcome you to this awesome high school that we will get a chance to see today. I will tell you, walking in, it is pretty impressive, just the physical structure. And as I came through the corridors, seeing all of the different places those students have gone off to college, it's obvious that some great work is being done here in this building. So I'm excited to have the chance to come and tour and see the work that's actually happening. So I hope you are as well. This is my first time here, and again, very excited about that opportunity. Let me say, from the standpoint of Georgia Power, STEM is very important to our company. As a matter of fact, our president, who is a huge supporter of public education, has taken a challenge or issued a challenge to our company to say, where in the area of education might we focus our resources in a more precise way? We support education in all aspects, but for purposes of really having impact and looking at our business, because if you generate, transmit, and distribute electricity, you need a lot of technically trained employees. And we happen to be in a situation where about 60% of our employees are age 40 and above. And we estimate in the next 10 years, we will lose in retirement about 2/3 of those employees. So there is a huge need for us to have quality STEM professionals that can come in and start replenishing the ranks as we have those employees to retire. And so our company has set out a strategy of supporting STEM education in 2 areas: increasing the pipeline of students that are interested in pursuing STEM careers, and also helping enhance teacher quality by having the opportunity to provide resources and exposure to teachers, math and science, for them to be able to be effective and successful in teaching the next generation of STEM professionals. So Georgia Power is committed to this area of STEM, and it is indeed a pleasure to see that today this meeting will focus on STEM education. So with that, again, thank you for being here, and I'd like to invite Steve Dolinger to come at this time. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Gwinnett County and an outstanding high school. We have been so looking forward to this for a long time. Remember back in the days when we would do our bus trips across Georgia? This is going to be like a mini version of that. So you get a taste of that, a taste of what a school is really like. Some of us have heard some people say, okay, STEM is science and technology. Today, you're not going to have to remember those letters. You will actually get to see it and feel it and know what that's all about in one of the best high schools in the whole country. Let me real quickly, though, before we crank that up, go through some information that's in your packet. Those of you that have been with us in the past, you realize that we take this opportunity once a quarter when we have these forums, whatever the critical issue is at the time, to give you a little bit of update on our work. In the packet, you have the agenda, so you can look at that quickly and see generally the flow of show. Then you've got the full bios of all the people who will be participating with us today. You can read those at your leisure and get the details. We won't go through long bio introductions when we bring people up to speak, but you can do that on your own. There's an article there that Dr. Dana Rickman wrote. Dana is our Director of Policy and Research. This is from the Supporter Report, electronic newsletter, and this is the 3rd of a series that she's been doing, kind of based on some information from our top 10 this year. The last issue there, not the last in the line of importance, maybe even the first, but it's putting all those puzzle pieces together for education reform, and Georgia has most of those together, and she's pointing that out in these reports. We also, we're hoping to give you the latest copy of our article in the James magazine, but they're a little late in publishing with the elections coming on. That'll come out in the next week or so. It'll be another article that Dana's written based on the U.S. Chamber's report of leaders and laggers, those who are leading or those who are lagging in improvement in results. So keep your eye out for that James magazine. If you are not on our distribution list and you'd like to get articles, our press releases, our news blasts, other information, please fill this out and just leave it on the table outside, and we will put you on that list. And speaking of lists, just so you'll know who all is here today, the last piece there is the list of people who registered for attendance today. Some of these people may not have shown up, and there's others of you who perhaps have just walked in. But if there's someone on here you go, oh, yes, I want to catch them before they leave, you can see that they're here and you can do a little networking. As we do our follow-up evaluations of these forum, typically people tell us that they come here mostly for the content, but also somewhat for the networking and that opportunity. So take full advantage of that. A few other things I'd like to tell you about. I hope as you came in, you picked up copies of the Economics of Education and the Top 10 Issues to Watch. The Economics of Education is sponsored by the Georgia Chamber and Lockheed Martin. Our chair is with Lockheed Martin. We do presentations all across Georgia with this. We're getting ready to crank up. Diane Hopkins is our vice president. She will do the next 5 or 6 classes across Georgia for the Georgia Academy of Economic Developers. We do regional leadership institutes across the state, a lot of chambers for their leadership class. It really does talk about that birth to work pipeline, so I suggest you get a copy of this. I already mentioned the top 10. This is for 2014. Dana and Elisa Olivares are working on the one for 2015. And as in the past, we will roll this out to our reporters at the, I think it's about the 9th Media Symposium. Bill Maddox, our Director of Communications, brings in reporters from across the state. And we have a full-day meeting. Georgia Public Broadcasting loves to host that for us. So if you know reporters across the state that are pretty much the education reporter, suggest that they join us on January the 9th. They can get information on our website or get a hold of Bill Maddox. But we have the new top 10, which gives them 10 issues they can write about. But we always go from the perspective of a national look, a Georgia look, and then so what? What should Georgia be doing about whatever these hot issues are? Also gives you a little bit of a glimpse of the upcoming legislative session. By the way, the top 10 is sponsored by AT&T. Bill Maddox, I mentioned, our communications director, brought home the gold again recently. The Georgia Association of Public Relations Association members. It's a statewide organization of the communication, PR people, and school systems. They have a juried review every year of all kinds of communication strategies, and they use people from outside of Georgia, from other states, to be the jury. And once again, we have gold, silver, and bronze medals for several different pieces. Our top 10 on Econ of Ed, again, our website, our branding in general, because you can see the look of our work has a brand, a color, and kind of a feel to it, including our folders, the website, and then some of our other work too. So congratulations to Bill, but Bill will say it's a whole team that works when we put these things together. Today's program is being videotaped, so not only do you want to behave yourself, but it will be available for you to see, and for colleagues of yours who were not able to attend today. It'll be on our website by the 1st of next week, so I would suggest that you suggest that they go to that website and be able to pick up this information. So that is a lot of the information I want to give you real quickly. Now, get into the program. This is exciting. We've talked about this for some time, and able to be here and have 2 different pieces. The first piece is going to kind of lay the big picture groundwork from our panel. And you can see who those people are, and I'll ask them as I'm jumping into this, if our panel members and Dana Rickman would come on up and start taking your positions and getting ready for this. We wanted to have different voices to give you the feel for this. And as I mentioned, you can read the long bio, but Beth Sarosi, as the president of AT&T of Georgia, not only brings that business voice, But as you read down through her bio, you'll see that she started her career as a classroom teacher. Representative Dudgeon is not only on the House Education Committee, he not only runs his own tech company, but at one time he was a school board member. And Dr. Whiting is with Seismic at Georgia Tech, so that gives you that idea. Well, she's a university voice, but you're good, rocking and rolling. So not only does she give you that voice, but she's involved in evaluation of programs in that whole K-12 and higher ed pipeline. And I mentioned Dr. Dana Rickman. She's our policy research director. She will moderate. So I guess rocking and rolling is the way to go. Dana, take it over.
We're very excited to be here, and I want to throw this slide up, the leaking STEM pipeline. Is there a plumber in the house? Research tells us that our economic future, both individually and as a state and as a region, it's in the STEM fields. Collectively, the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math, they're the fastest growing job industries in Georgia. Estimated by about 2018, the STEM jobs in Georgia are going to increase about 17%. That's about 200,000 new jobs coming to our state. But look at this leaking pipeline. Henry, you talked about the pipeline earlier. Georgia Power has its work cut out for it. And I showed this pipeline to Steve Dolinger yesterday, and he said, please just call the dang plumber. And so that's what we're here to do today. I have some expert plumbers up here with me to talk about what we in Georgia are doing from the perspective of business, the legislative, government, and education to fix this leaking pipeline. And so I want to jump right into a panel discussion with our experts here. And Beth, I want to start with you. As a business matter, some say the fact that we simply do not have enough STEM graduates to meet the demands of companies like AT&T. It'll put our ability to compete on a global scale at risk. How do you respond to that? Or in a more direct way, why is STEM education so important to AT&T?
Sure, I still haven't figured out how to make mine on, so I'll take, thank you. This is a social experiment, I think. Well, for AT&T, really there are a couple of angles. First and foremost, our company has changed so much over the last 15 to 20 years that almost every job that we have now is a technical job. Even if you're in management, even if you're in the business office, you're still dealing with technology, and you're really needing to understand that to explain that to a customer. And so what we saw happening was probably much similar to Georgia Power and Lockheed Martin and others. We realized that we needed to take action. And so our approach is really multi-pronged. One, we have really committed our philanthropic and community resources towards this issue, and specifically at the high school and middle school level. And so that has really, our focus is on STEM. It's also sometimes on other aspects of education, but really the thing that we most focus on are kids who otherwise would not succeed. So underserved kids, and how do we take that and change the trajectory? So that's kind of our main focus. More recently, we've also started dabbling, and this is not without controversy, but into the world of how do we also start to prepare curriculum and training that gets our workers currently in our company where they need to go for the future, but also people coming in. And so we've partnered with an online company called Udacity. We actually did a partnership with Georgia Tech, which was our first foray into a master's degree program. Then now we've made the leap into something that we call nano degrees, which are actually a new concept that are, they range from 8 weeks to 9 months, where you can actually get a credentialed degree that is targeted at a job. So when we think about this pipeline, what we did is we started and we said, we are going to need software developers. That's not something that's traditionally been in our company's core. We've been a network hardware company, but we are moving to be a software company. So how do we get our workers there, and how do we bring the next generation of workers in with those skills? So we start with a job, we work with somebody like Udacity, maybe Georgia Tech, maybe another academic institution, to create the credential, and then we deliver that training, and you can do it from anywhere. And in fact, what we've been surprised to see and happy to see is that most of the people signing up for that are all over the U.S. They can't necessarily leave their jobs to go do it, but they're taking those courses online. So those are some of the first steps that we've taken. Again, not without controversy. We've had a lot of people ask, why is a business getting into education? And the answer is because we have to survive. We need people that have these skills, and we want to collaborate, we want to partner, but we've got to take action.
Speaking of needing people and needing people with skills, Mike, you're a policymaker, but you're also a professional in a high-tech company. Do you see all this hand-wringing over the STEM shortage? Is there really a shortage? What does that look like? And so from both of your perspectives, what's going on with that, with the labor supply?
Yes, in addition to being in the Georgia House, my real job, I'm the Chief Technology Officer of a video game company in Alpharetta, and I've been in the entrepreneur in the Alpharetta area in high-tech since the early 90s. And just as an example, the last 5 programmers I've hired, 3 of them came from outside of Georgia. I've got Texas, Seattle, and Boston. So, and I wasn't looking to hire people from out of state. It was just, that's where I could find them. And video games, luckily I'm at the top of the food chain. The young guys want to work for me. They want to program video games, preferring to do it at a bank or something like that. So I actually have the pick of the litter. But my colleagues downstream, I know many of them who are then trying to backfill maybe some of the people that I've taken to the video game company, and they're very much struggling. What you're finding is in the computer field, both from the sort of IT support level and just maintaining the computer hardware to the more developer level people, which I mostly deal with, there is a shortage. I mean, that's just the flat out, ask anybody in the industry, there is a shortage. There's not enough good people out there to do those jobs. We were on the Science and Technology Executive Committee with the legislature a couple of years ago and ran around the state, and the number at the time was 4,000 to 5,000 unfulfilled jobs in Georgia, which required technical skills which weren't out there.
And so, Don, I want to jump to you in talking about getting more kids out of the pipeline. But how much do highly skilled STEM teachers matter in this equation to raise the achievement level for students wanting to study STEM subjects?
Well, I think we know here in Georgia that we need highly qualified, and I'm going to change that from highly skilled to highly qualified teachers. The legislature helped us quite a bit in helping to identify what it meant, but we know that research tells us that experienced teachers, teachers who have content knowledge, teachers who also have what we call pedagogical content knowledge, meaning not only do they know chemistry, but they know how to teach chemistry in ways that students with multiple ways of learning so they can get at it. So differentiating instruction is what I'm talking about. Also, we need teachers who actually have done well in school themselves. We need teachers who have high GPAs and have been successful in college because they do know the content. We at Georgia Tech, we have quite a few students who do well in mathematics and science and engineering, but we've actually now offer some education courses because we recognize it's not just the content, but it's getting that content across the students. So it's extremely important. I do like the fact that we must have highly qualified teachers in our schools now, but I will tell you, in a lot of schools where we have high poverty students, high minority students, we don't have the most qualified teachers. And so we have to work on that still.
Speaking of teachers in the classroom and supports for schools that are trying to teach more STEM, Beth, I want to ask you, we hear from a lot of businesses that they simply don't know how to offer support other than just write a check to a school. And while certainly money is always welcome, there must be other ways that business can partner with schools and support them in this effort. And I know that AT&T has done a lot of community engagement work. From your perspective, what do schools need and how can we as the business community really help?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We very much agree. Money is always welcome, but it's a lot more than that. One of the things that we did several years ago, in addition to recommitting to the area of education as our focus, was we committed towards 1 million hours of mentoring from our employees to students. And so for us, obviously, because so many people in our company are in STEM fields, much of that is in the STEM area. And I think that has obviously been just as powerful for our employees employees as for the students. But that allows not only connection and the benefits that we know come from mentoring and are research-based, but also it allows for career exploration through a meaningful relationship. And so that exposure really, I think, is a missing piece that we can all in business help. And you know, there's a lot of good research that shows that many students drop out of high school not because they are not academically capable, but because they don't see the relevance to their future. And when you think about it, especially in areas of high poverty and where there are underrepresented communities, a lot of what happens is the student doesn't know anyone other than their parent or their family member and the jobs they have or the teachers in the school. And so widening their exposure to jobs that exist is actually a powerful tool that we as business, I think, can bring to the table. And doing it not just even on I mean, one time is great, but through a meaningful relationship, I think can really be even more powerful. And I think that extends after high school into college as well, continuing to support, especially women and minorities in fields where they are underrepresented, because that can feel very isolating. To continue that mentorship, I think is a really powerful tool.
And so that's a partnership with business in the schools. Donna, I want to talk to you about the Georgia Tech and Seismic specifically have partnered extensively with K-12 schools to try and get more STEM and more STEM education. Can you talk a little bit about what progress has been made in educational institutions, and what are some examples of what's going on in especially the high schools?
Well, I think we have the same reason for partnering that many of corporate America has. We want to have qualified students to come to higher ed institutions or participate in any post-secondary experience that they choose. So we have a number of partnerships. Of course, we partner with individual schools, but what we're looking at now are innovations. What kind of innovative partnerships can we help develop? So we worked with a number of schools. I see a representative here from Drew Charter, so I'm going to bring them up because they're very much interested in integrating art and STEM and looking at new ways to get that information across the students and keep students interested in education. Another innovation for us is computer science. And so we're looking at how can we connect coding to STEM. How can we connect coding to STEM? And so we're working on a number of initiatives with several schools, Centennial Academy, which is a school in our community, on how we can integrate coding at the elementary school level, because that was a skill, that was a knowledge base that students didn't necessarily need to have. But like Mike mentioned, we need to prepare students to go into these 21st century careers. So coding is one of those careers. We did work with Race to the Top because we're interested in exploring how we can develop and implement online learning, professional development experiences for teachers. So we worked with Race to the Top to develop what we think are innovative courses because they focus on those 21st century research areas that we have at Georgia Tech to help teachers learn how to integrate those into instruction at the middle and high school levels. So we're looking at nanotechnology, we're looking at computer science, we're looking at bio-inspired design, which is actually taking a look at how biology impacts architecture. So there are all these new kind of content areas that we really didn't have previously. So we're looking at partnerships and ways to actually develop those. And we do partner with industry as well. And I think that's something that I want to say. It's not just industry has a program, K-12 has a program, higher ed has a program. We have to partner together to develop innovative solutions for our students so that they can be prepared to make smart choices when they finish high school. So we partner with AT&T and Georgia Power.
And Mike, I want to ask you, we're sitting here today in one of the best examples of a STEM school. It's beautiful here, and it's almost overwhelming how fantastic it is. It makes me want to go back to high school. How can we ensure that these types of opportunities that we're going to see here today, especially when we take our tour, are offered to students in every corner of the state, particularly rural Georgia or where there's really high concentrations of poverty?
That's a challenge because anytime you try to expand things, the first question is money. And we all know the challenge is educational funding. So being a business guy, you look for how do I get the most bang for my buck? And with the great leadership from the governor and several other people, there's been a couple initiatives that I think are going to help us move down this road, especially in rural Georgia. And the broadband initiative to really try to get 100 megabits to every school in the state, put $20 million in bonds and then another $10, $20 million in sort of diverted money over the past couple years to really intentionally give that bandwidth to the schools, and so that they then can have access to great STEM content. As we've already been pointed out, it's going to be hard to get high qualified STEM teachers to wave a magic wand and get them all over Georgia. That's a long-term difficult thing to do. But to get started, what if you can take high quality STEM materials and bring them digitally to the school, and you take the teacher at the school and you bring up their game by having this access to this great content. And of course, all the high-tech jobs sort of living and dealing with the internet and bandwidth is a huge part of what you're doing. And so that, I believe, is at least a cost-effective way that we can sort of get started on that trail. But you're also seeing that the STEM being more acknowledged even by my rural colleagues in the legislature as being an important priority.
One thing I didn't mention, which I think is an innovative program, is this whole idea of STEM certification for schools. Through the Department of Ed and the state legislature, they've identified some ways that schools can focus on STEM, and I think it's been very helpful. For example, I visited an elementary school in Dalton, Georgia last week, and what the certification program does, one of the things it does, is provide schools with rubrics so that they understand, in order for us to focus on STEM, these are the things that we must do. And it's been very helpful in schools like elementary schools who may not have as many teachers who've had experiences in mathematics and science to help them know these are some of the things that we can do. It encourages that at least, I believe, 75% of the teaching staff at the elementary level, for example, work on endorsements in either mathematics or science. So that increases that teacher content knowledge that I mentioned a little bit earlier. And I do think that's an innovative program. I think it's very helpful that the state is willing to provide resources for teachers, for schools, so they can actually focus on STEM and know how to do it correctly, instead of going all off maybe on a tangent. We want innovation, but we want purposeful innovation. So,
Beth, I want to come back to you, and looking at our panel, I have to say, as a woman who's studied a lot of math, I'm thrilled that 2 of our 3 panelists talking about STEM are females, but women are traditionally underrepresented in the STEM area. But according to a study by the University of Texas at Austin, young women don't avoid STEM majors and professions for lack of math and science skills. Rather, they're really choosing other disciplines in spite of having these skills, because it's viewed more as a traditionally masculine field. Is it the culture and environment that is changing minds about getting women into the STEM fields? How can we remove some of these obstacles to bring more into it?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I'll answer as from industry's perspective, and then I'll answer as a mother, if that's okay. From industry's perspective, I think that the conversation has really, it's been around for a long time. It's now around in a very wide way and at the highest levels of companies, and I think that is great. And the conversation around what does it really take, why is this still true, and what do we all need to do? Not just what do women need to do, but what do we all need to do to address this? And so even in our company, I see that we now have a Women in Technology group that works within our company, but also out. I don't know if you've seen the Sit With Me campaign, but a lot of things like that are really focused on this issue and support. As a mother, I'll tell you, I had a moment in our house where we have lots of girls. I have 2 daughters. And so there is no conversation about the inability to do, or math is hard. I mean, that does not happen in our house. So I'm driving my daughters home from school one day, and my daughter at the time was in 3rd grade and says to me, "Mom, I was the first girl in my class to learn all my math facts." This was multiplication. And I said, "The first girl? Where were you in the class?" And she said, 4th. And I said, well, then you were 4th in the class, and that's fantastic. But this concept of girls versus boys, you know, and that didn't come from home. That came from just the community. And so I think we do have to start to change the dialogue in our communities and our families. And I think that we are at a place where we still need extra supports in that. And so I am a big believer that in some instances it is really positive to have all-girl coding programs, all-girl math programs. You know, not forever, but until we get to a place where it's an equalized thing up the age groups. And so I think that there's a lot that we need to do just culturally, and it's fascinating to me that this is actually somewhat of a unique phenomenon in the U.S. It doesn't really exist in Japan. It doesn't really exist even sometimes in India, in areas of India. So it's really a cultural thing that I think we need to break down. But practically and immediately, I do think that there is a dialogue that needs to happen, and I think that there are support structures we need to put in place to raise that up and empower females and minority into the area.
Donna, I want to ask you, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but in your partnerships with the Georgia Department of Education to really increase access to STEM education for teachers and students, you guys have really implemented a more rigorous course of study and professional development for teachers, but also for students. What lessons have you learned that may help school districts about how to raise the rigor for both teachers and students about these STEM courses?
I do think professional development is important. Our society is changing so quickly. Our knowledge about STEM subjects, particularly in science and technology, is changing so quickly that we're going to have to continue to offer professional learning programs for teachers. The way we are offering those programs has to change. We still do a lot of face-to-face work, which I think is important. I think we can't lose that. But we're going to have to look at alternative ways to offer professional learning, particularly through online mechanisms or blended mechanisms. In the student realm, we're going to look at we're always looking at our standards, and I'm a firm believer that a cell is a cell. What we know about the cell has changed tremendously from even when I was an undergraduate student. So we have our standards, but we're going to have to look at new ways to integrate different kinds of content into our standards. I keep mentioning computer science. I'm obviously a believer in computer science, but how can we teach computer science in the science classroom? It shouldn't be a separate class that, you know, all the kids go to, they take coding, and then they go back to science class and learn science the same way. And so in answering your question, we've looked at some content for students and some courses for students, and one of the things we did as part of our Race to the Top work, in addition to the professional learning that I mentioned, was the development of a robotics and engineering design course. And the way we want our course taught is that the engineering teacher, this is an 8th grade middle school course for 8th graders. But what we'd like to do is the content is integrated into the engineering systems course, but we'd like it co-taught with the physical science and the math teacher, so that they're all working together on teaching this particular course. And that's one of the innovations we think is important. You can't be in a silo. You know, the way it works is right now you've got the science class, the math class, and then they go to exploratory and take whatever class they're taking there. And the teachers don't necessarily talk to each other through no fault of their own. You know, it has a lot to do with planning time as well. So we've got to look at the structure of the schools and how we run schools a little bit differently.
And Donna, real quick, when you and I were talking the other day, you were telling me about these really high-speed calculus classes that are now being offered out to the rural areas that children who really top-notch mathematicians wanted to be able to take. Can you touch on that just a little? Because this is pretty exciting.
Yeah, what happened, we actually have a distance calculus course at Georgia Tech where students at this school participate in great numbers. It's a freshman level course. And what was happening, it was a video conferencing format where the students link in at the 8 a.m. calculus course offered at Georgia Tech daily. Well, what we found two things. A lot of students, because of scheduling, a lot of students could not participate in the course through video conferencing. The second thing we found out, there are students all over the state of Georgia, gifted math students, who are ready for freshman calculus at 10th and 11th grade levels, lots at 12th grade levels, but I was a little surprised that we have students ready for freshman calculus at the 10th grade level. A lot of these students are in rural districts. We were not linking up with those students at all. So we found a mechanism where we could actually offer the course online, and students can link in at different times and participate in the course. And we have postdocs who are in mathematics who actually teach the course. So that through that, we've been able to increase the number of students who take freshman level calculus around the state. And that was very important for us because we've met a need for these students.
That's great. Mike, do you think your colleagues at the General Assembly are well informed or informed enough about the critical role that STEM education plays in the competitiveness in our future economic prosperity? How can we really get their attention and get them to look at this?
I'm going to answer that question, but I want to follow up with something that Donna said real quick about the computer science, because I forgot to say it in my second answer, which was that the governor came out and announced about 6 weeks ago around the program to push more computer science education into K-12, specifically into high school, looking at making it count for more of the different paths for graduation requirements in high school, but even more importantly, getting the regents of the University System of Georgia to allow computer science to stand in for a foreign language, realizing that you have a supply and demand problem. A lot of times, not a lot of kids are interested in taking computer science, but if it starts to be elevated to, it gets me into the University of Georgia, it gets me a good towards my graduation requirement, you elevate that, the demand for it, and then the supply and so forth will come on later. So I think that's an important trick. But back to my colleagues in the legislature, it's really interesting. A lot of times, we had a bill in 2012 by Senator Rogers, which would have required that all students take an online course before graduation starting in 2015. That bill did not pass in that format. It ended up being changed just to basically encourage and to move more of the online testing and to encourage more online courses and make sure there's no barriers to students taking online courses. But during that debate, a lot of my colleagues from rural Georgia said, this sounds great for you rich people, quote, in metro Atlanta, but this will never work down here. We barely have any computers, we don't have facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So even if they thought it was important, they thought that it was too far of a reach. And so that's why it's so important that we are working towards getting bandwidth and technology into those buildings, because then I think they could see, okay, maybe we're not as far as we thought. But I do believe that my rural colleagues are all about jobs, anything for their people to get jobs. That's their number one concern for most of my colleagues. How can I get my people a better opportunity, better jobs? And so they were convinced that there's a STEM education they could give their kids in their communities that might allow them to get a high-paying job somewhere. They are all in.
And my last question that I want to open up to anyone on the panel, and Beth, you alluded to this a little bit earlier. A recent report from the ACT, the College Readiness Assessment Testing Company, points to a gap between the level of students who express interest in STEM areas and then their intention to pursue careers in STEM. And then the good news is that it was a very high percentage that expressed interest in STEM, but then we had that disconnect of actually pursuing a STEM career. And I think a lot of it had to do with they didn't really understand what a STEM career was. How can we really link that for them and ensure that the students understand the career opportunities that match this level of interest? And anyone else?
I'll jump in. I mean, I do think it will be fascinating to see what happens with the current generation as they start to enter the workforce. So the kindergartners now, because they are growing up in a world that is really all STEM for them. And so I think that it will be fascinating if some of that starts to change on its own, just as technology starts to or continues to be almost a part of every single part of our lives. In the interim, I think that exposure is a huge thing, and I'll echo Donna's sentiment about coding. You know, it's fascinating. About 2 years ago, I said to my husband, I think we need to make our girls learn to code. And he is an engineer from tech, and he said, what? And I said, it is going to be, in my opinion, equivalent to understanding finance in the future. It's not necessarily that we're all going to be accountants, but everything we do will be underlying on software development. So it's almost just becoming versatile in the language, even if you choose not to code as a living. So I do think some of that is an awareness on the part of the people who are in positions to influence and have those conversations, whether it be parents, community leaders, teachers, schools, to start to bridge that for our students right now of what these careers look like. And I also think that career exploration as part of education, so formal in the schools, is a huge piece of that as well.
I know one thing we're doing, we do bring high school groups through the video game studio and show them what's going on here. Y'all be surprised to know the third highest source of internet traffic website in the United States is called Twitch TV. It's people watching other people play video games. So the new generation, even though the kindergartners are growing up with this, but even the 18 to 25 generation now is much more immersed and much more comfortable in the technology world. And what we've got to do is a subtle focus. Everybody loves the technology. They want to be the power users of the technology. We've got to shift that little bit focus and say, well, somebody's got to create and to manage the technology. And I don't think it's that far of a walk, and I especially agree with Beth that this generation we're looking at now that's in school now, I think will be a lot easier to bridge that gap than the ones who came about with the technology was so new and so sort of elite, they were just uncomfortable going there.
I think we have a lot of programs that are exposing our students to careers. I think one of the issues is we don't have enough of them. You know, I'm looking at Tag Ed, and they have a wonderful internship program where they put students into different corporate environments. We've actually had some students at Georgia Tech, and I think we need more programs like that so that students can have exposure. And it might be we have to look at different ways of implementing those internship programs so that we can have more students participating. I can't solve the problem, but I know we need many more of those type of experiences.
And I will say, as another shout out to our friends at Tag Ed, that they are sponsoring a Georgia Codes Day, which is December 10th. So if you want to find out about Georgia Codes Day, contact the partnership or Tag Ed directly, and we can all be coding on December 10th, which I'm very excited about. Okay, so now we're going to take about the next 10 to 15 minutes and open it up for audience questions. And since we're lacking microphones, if you ask me the question, I'll reverberate for the. And so start in the back with George.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and all the efforts you're giving to STEM education. STEM education, I think more and more people are becoming aware of what's going on with STEM ed. University system of Georgia. University of Georgia had a State of Education meeting earlier this fall, and Richard Ingersoll was there saying that nationwide we have, most of the teachers we have are first-year teachers, and we're losing about 200,000 first-year teachers every year. Of that, STEM, math and science teachers, minority teachers, tend to move out of the profession faster than anybody else. So I think what Seismic does and what Tag Ed does and others do to help the teachers network is great because it gives them a sense of quality. But I think one of the reasons that we lose so many teachers is because of the leadership in the schools. What can we do to help principals move towards support for the teachers so that the students can learn all these opportunities?
So our question for the panel was that we are losing teachers, especially STEM teachers, math and science teachers, at an alarming rate. So what can we do to support principals to help support teachers in the school? Anyone on the panel?
Well, I think, you know, in various schools, a lot of administrators are trying some different things to keep their new teachers there. You know, those that have the freedom to may offer a double planning period for teachers or more time to visit experienced teachers' classrooms to observe what is going on. I am a former middle grades teacher, and I will tell you the first couple of years, it is very, very difficult because nothing you've done can prepare you for what's going on in the classroom. You've done student teaching. In fact, we were talking about this yesterday. When you do student teaching, you're in the best of the best. You're in the master teacher's classroom. You're observing what's going on. But when you are placed in your school, in your new environment, it may not be that type of situation. You may not have the best students. And so it does take you a while to just understand the world of teaching and, get it down a little bit. It takes a couple of years. And unfortunately, because we don't have the proper support across the board, we lose a lot of teachers. I think one of the things we need to do, we need to go out and we need to find those successful cases around the country. What kind of induction programs? For example, there's a school in Atlanta Public Schools. They have a great induction program. So we need to take a look at that because they're able to keep teachers in the classroom because they run them through this particular program. So we need to look at these models around the country and see if we can replicate them and make them part of what we do.
What I'll add as far as getting message down to principals is if the state emphasizes this as a priority, a policy priority with programs like elevating computer science on the high school graduation chart, then that pushes down to superintendents and school boards, which then hopefully pushes down to principals who then hopefully will prioritize it more. But your question is a tough question. I've been at a school board for 4 years. It's a tough question.
Yeah, I'll just add, and this one gets personal for me because I left teaching after 1 year, and my parents are both lifelong teachers, and it was a challenge, and I think that the principal plays a huge role, but I think the system also needs some reforms to address this, and while not popular, I will put it on the table, we don't pay well. And I think that especially when you're looking at people who are in STEM fields, they know they can go work somewhere else and make probably twice or more. And on those really bad days, and for me, it was never the students. It was everything else. On those really bad days, you say, why am I doing this? Am I even making a difference? And again, it was never the students. They were the ones that you knew you were making a difference. But I will just share this personal story. At the end of my first year, I got my annual review, and I got told about how I dressed. I got told about how well I got kids in and out of the bathroom at break when the bell rang, and how well I showed up to do the football ticket taking. I didn't get one comment about teaching. And I remember I looked in my assistant principal in the eyes. I was like, well, how do I teach? She's like, well, you're good. And I remember thinking, really? This is what this is about? I thought I was here to teach kids. But anyway, all that I think for people who are high achieving, want to do well, we lack sometimes those feedback systems to give them that. And all of you in the room are actually helping address this problem through professional development, partnerships. But there is so much ground to cover throughout the state that it's really challenging to reach all those teachers and get those programs in place everywhere. And so I think those are some fundamental challenges that we really do have to tackle, or people will continue to leave.
And we may have to retrain those administrators as well. There may need to be some retraining of administrators on how to evaluate. And I know we're going through this new process. I'm aware of that, and I'm really interested to see what happens with that. But I think we may need to look at, how do we train our our administrators to be more supportive of particularly new teachers in their buildings.
Michael, your question?
Sure. My problem is I have two questions, and I'm sure you will only ask them about. You're right. Mike, I applaud the grassroots effort for computer science credit. And my question is, as we move towards that, we go talk to administrators, and the real issue is not student interest, it's teacher prep. And so Donna, Mike, can you talk about what you see as being the answer for getting our teacher prep, because it's all these issues that we're talking about around getting credit for computer science. I'll stop.
I'll answer one part of it, and then I guess Donna, you may comment on some of the teacher prep. Realize that that's a big challenge. So one thing out of the gate that we realize we need to do is to have some digital delivery of some of the content. So the Georgia Virtual School with Bob Swigum and the Department of Ed is already planning on ramping up computer science in order to be able to deliver it digitally through the virtual school. That's not the ideal solution, but again, from a money and time point of view, that's going to at least allow it to get delivered to some places quicker than others. And I want to do anything I can at the state to help support training teachers in computer science, but that's a tough question I'm going to pass to Donna.
And really, there is no one solution. I think that is actually an excellent solution because for our teachers, many of them, this is new. You know, I've been working with Scratch for a while, but I even have a learning curve with that, and I've been using it for many, many years. And so that's what's going to happen with teachers in the classroom. Plus, we have all of our other content that we have to think about. So how do we integrate computer science? What are professional learning programs that actually work? We're not there yet. So we've got this. I'm really interested to see, England does have a national curriculum. And they've actually integrated computer science into their national curriculum. So my message is, let's look to others who've been doing this work and see what kinds of things they're doing and what we can learn from them, and then proceed down a path. I'm actually happy to have projects like code.org because it does give teachers an opportunity to see what coding is and to do some implementation in the classroom, but we've got a lot to learn still.
And I would just add on that I think there are some really interesting hybrid approaches happening where I think we have this vision that online learning is solitude and one-on-one, and there's some really interesting things happening where groups are getting together and having a coach, they call them, that is helping with the camaraderie, technical trouble, but the content delivery is coming from an expert digitally. And I think that helps solve some of the challenges of keeping people interested, keeping them advancing in the curriculum, but also the shortage of trained professionals.
And we have a question in the back.
Yeah, Monty Green with Wisdom to Believe Foundation. My question really, because first of all, I just want to commend you all for the conversation this morning. But my question really is related to the integration of business and education, which I believe has to happen. Because if you look at this school and any successful model, the fundamental foundation is that business and education came together. When you look at our career academy models that are very successful in this state, it is business and education coming together. The reason I think it's important is because even from a curriculum perspective, we cannot develop curriculum anymore that does not include the business aspect to the educational model. And what we continue to see, unfortunately, and I've worked with Gilda Lyons and a number of others out of the Department of Education, what we continue to see, though, is that we get into our silos, unfortunately, at the end of the day because of the rules and the process we have to go through. So my question really is, how do you intentionally do things that really drives the notion of business and education as a community really developing, whether it's the coding, which, by the way, coding is actually moving to non-coding of coding. So it's moving at accelerated rates that if you just stop and put your finger in the ground, it's probably going to be wrong. And so my point is, how do we do these things together? Thanks.
I'll jump in. I love your question. That was very articulate. I think for us, actually, some of what you said was the driver behind our partnership with Udacity and Georgia Tech and then the nano degrees. We have worked what I will call within the system for a very long time, working with school districts, with nonprofits that serve, and and I think we felt like we were making incremental change. We didn't feel like we were making anything that was even close to exponential. And so when we looked at that, we said exactly what you got to is how do we, even if it's somewhat disruptive, how do we put a stake in the ground and say, this is a new model, this is a new way, this is a new thing, and still working with partners, because we don't have the expertise alone to do this, but with Georgia Tech, with Udacity, with others, kind of trying to shake up the model, not only of delivery, but also of pricing. If you look at both of those, the pricing is completely disruptive to traditional education, and so that was exactly what you said was what drove in large part our decision to go a different path and kind of see what happened.
I'll point out that the locals are so critical on this. The state can set up its programs and goals and things like that, but if your local's not invested in it, it's not going to happen. The reason this school is here and the reason that Cisco and Gwinnett formed the original partnership was because Gwinnett decided that's something they wanted to do. We've had similar things go on in Forsyth County where I'm at, where they've made an intentional decision, we want to go do this. So local support is key. And it can work both ways. You get a local business or a local superintendent or school board who says, this support for me, I want to reach out to my business in the area, figure out how we can bring them into the curriculum. And career academies, I think, are the best example of something like that. And again, career academies work when the local community says, this is what I want for my area. So it's a tough to do top down. You need the local interest.
Well, one thing I'm just going to mention, I'm working on a project where we are bringing together all of the stakeholders in one community, Atlanta, the K-12 community, the business community, the nonprofit community, which we haven't talked a lot about, to facilitate some change in one of the high school clusters. I will tell you that I've been in the business a long time. It's been 30 years for me. And I have seen a lot of change, and I have seen the change that the way business works in K-12 now. It is more of a partnership. It used to be a partnership where the business partner bought the band uniforms or the athletic uniforms. But now I see business and K-12, higher ed, nonprofits actually working together to develop solutions. And what those solutions are, I think, are going to be different depending on that local environment. So, and that's all I can say about it right now.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to extend a hearty thank you very much to our expert panel of plumbers that are helping us across the state fix the dang pipe. And so I'm going to invite Dr. Dollinger up to transition us into the next part of our day. And after our tour, there will be a little more time for Q&A. Thank you.
So now I have to call Dana our master plumber. That would be part of our title. Well, thank you, panel members. This was great. And that last question is a great segue into the work that the partnership does. We are all about bringing those voices together, business, government, education, community leaders. Our panels, our writings, try to have that kind of a voice. Our chair of our board is always a business leader. We appreciate members like Henry there and his CEO as our past chair. And then Judy Agerton's here, our board member. We have a lot of our board members who are in that business, but then a lot of the education groups are part of our board, as well as a lot of people by virtue of their position. The House and Senate Education Committee chairs, the state superintendent, the chancellor. So we have the voices there. So those kinds of questions are exactly where our work focuses and how we try to bring it together. Well, bring it together today, we're going to now get to the real fun part of the morning, to be able to have the opportunity to visit this high school. A couple of years ago, on one of our bus trips, we visited the first STEM certified high school in Rockdale and their center. It was interesting there. One of my takeaways was interviewing, talking to some of their students, that they were interviewing colleges. I said, well, you're interviewing colleges. Why is that? They said, because many of the colleges we're finding out do not have labs as nice as ours in Georgia. Well, you're going to see similar things here today. So as we do the tour and then come back, we'll have a debriefing just to kind of wrap that all up in a nice package before you head back wherever you're going to be working today. With that, let me give you the principal of this outstanding school, Ivy Bray.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Gwinnett School of Mathematics, Science, and Technology, undoubtedly the longest name of any high school in the state of Georgia. My name is Ivy Bray, and I would like to just welcome you to GSMST. to tell you that this is a world-class school for a lot of reasons, and we hope that by the time your visit is over, you will see some of those in action. I also want to take a minute to commend the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education. You know, there's a lot of people and factions that actually want to weaken public education for a variety of reasons, and the Georgia Partnership has worked long and hard to strengthen public education, which is what we need, and we certainly appreciate their efforts. Just to kind of set the stage for you, since we are in Gwinnett County Public Schools is, as you know, the largest school district in Georgia, with 173,500 students enrolled currently, which is roughly 10% of all the public school students in the whole state. Gwinnett has 18 traditional high schools. Many of those you probably know the names of. Number 19 is actually being constructed now, about a mile down to Old Norcross, and will open next year. Within Gwinnett, there are 6 specialty high schools. There are 2 technical schools, and we sit next to one of those, Maxwell High School. We sit and property share with them. There are 2 alternative schools in Gwinnett. There's an entire 4 through 12 online campus. Gwinnett has their own online campus, and then there's us. And we are a high school 9 through 12, and we are a district-sponsored charter school. So we are in year 8 of existence. The first 3 years we were housed within Duluth High School while this building was being designed and built, and we are in year 5 in this magnificent building. We are in year 8 of a 10-year charter. The State Charter Commission does not approve 10-year charters anymore. They only do 5 years, but we got ours when they still offered 10 years, and we have this year and 2 more left under that original charter. And part of that charter relates to how we accept students. So our mechanism for accepting students is to take them as rising 9th graders. So we have a registration for a lottery number process where students in the 8th grade that really meet 2 criteria. One is they have to live in Gwinnett County Public Schools attendance zone. You may know that Beaufort City Schools has their own city system, and so as long as the students live in Gwinnett County but not in the Beaufort city limits, then they meet residency requirements. And then they have to have completed 8th grade, a bona fide 8th grade curriculum, to be promoted to 9th grade. And if they do that, then they're eligible for our lottery. We have the lottery in February, and we have 350 spots for the last several years, including our lottery drawing this year on February the 9th. Last year, we had 1,286 balls in the hopper for 350 spots. And so those all get drawn in order, and the first 350 have a guaranteed spot, and some people yield their spot. And then number 351 and below, because they are all drawn in order, are the waiting list. And so this past year, we went all the way down to number 526 was the last student we enrolled on the 5th day of school. And the students who yield their spot do so for a variety of reasons. They decide they really want to play football after all, or their new boyfriend or girlfriend they met over the summer is going to their neighborhood school and they don't want to be a part for them, and so forth. And then once the students begin, that's our cohort. And we try to graduate as many of them as we can. In the history of our school, we roughly graduate about 60% of that cohort. The other students will eventually go back to their neighborhood school and graduate from there. My goal is that we graduate about 80% of that cohort. And what is challenging for many of these students is not the fact that they left the football team. It's the fact that our curriculum is extremely rigorous. And I'll touch on that more in just a little bit. But let me tell you a little bit about our school. We are a STEM certified school, one of the first schools to be STEM certified in the state of Georgia. You may see the banner. It's out in the atrium when you came in. You may have seen that. And our school does some fabulous things. We are not a Georgia High School Athletic Association school, so we do not have competitive sports. And that's one of the things that students and families have to decide to give up to come here. And so students can't come here and then, play on the baseball team at their neighborhood school. They have to give that up. In addition to that, students come here from all over. Gwinnett has 27 middle schools, and we take students from every one. But the interesting fact is 60 of our original 350 in last year's lottery had never attended a public school in Gwinnett. A lot of them were homeschooled, private schooled, parochial schooled, or something else. And so they don't know each other either. So we have a 4-day summer camp in June for our enrolling 9th graders. They come and they basically do school for a week. They do 4 days, and it's not easy. We give them a dose of reality, and some students decide, this is not what I signed up for. And the big part of that experience is it gives them a chance to know each other, since they're not coming as an 8th grade cohort from a feeder middle school. But it also gives them a chance to learn the building and learn the teachers and learn a little bit about the curriculum and so forth. This past year, I'll just rattle off a few of the things that our school accomplished. We won the state math tournament. If people who don't want to say our entire name just say, oh, you know, the math school. And so our math team does very well. We finished in the top 2 in Science Olympiad competition in the state for the last 4 years. We sent 4 students to the International Science Fair, which is a very big number from one school. We have by far the largest number of students that participate in the Governor's Honors Program, and oddly enough, most of those come out of the Humanities Department from our school. We sent 5 robotics teams to international competitions, 4 VEX teams to Anaheim, California, and 1 FRC team to St. Louis. Our orchestra played at Carnegie Hall last April, so we do have a great music program as well. We still call ourselves a STEM school because that's what the banner says, but we do have some STEAM components in what we do. And our Spanish department was chosen as the foreign language department for the whole state of Georgia. We offer 3 foreign languages. Spanish is by far our biggest, and they're top notch. But we also are one of 2 Gwinnett County schools that teaches Chinese, and then we have a German program. And we will add a 4th foreign language probably 2 years from now, and I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be Japanese, Korean, or French. And the challenge is, and what I'll touch on in our brief comments here, is some of the things that we've already heard, which is I really want to add Korean, but finding a teacher, a really good Korean teacher, is a challenge. It's easiest to find a French teacher, but is that the subject we need that aligns with our STEM mission and our curriculum? And that decision is yet to be determined. Let me just touch on our curriculum, tell you a little bit about that, set the stage for what you're going to see on the tour. There are really 3 general differences from our school and Brookwood, Collins Hill, and many of the other traditional schools in Gwinnett County. One of those is that our students are required to attain 25 Carnegie units when the state minimum is 23. So our students can't graduate from our school, and this is all stuff that's in our charter. They have to have 25 credits. The second big difference is that there are 5 required advanced placement classes. Students don't have to pass any AP classes to graduate and get a high school diploma, but they have to take and pass 5 here. None in the 9th grade. Our 9th grade is very full with 8 Carnegie units embedded. In the 10th grade, our students take advanced placement biology, all of them. All of our students take that class. We don't offer any other biology besides that one. And then before they graduate, they have to take AP Calculus. They have to take either AP Language Arts or AP Literature. It depends on if they're better reading or writing. And then both economics classes. They have to take AP Macroeconomics and AP Microeconomics as a year-long senior social studies class. A majority of our students take far more than those 5, but those 5 are required. So when those 9th graders come in, that's what they're faced with. I've got to take and pass 5 AP classes at a minimum. The highest distinguishing characteristic that the College Board issues is something called the AP National Scholar, and that is a student who has taken 8 or more AP exams, not the course, but the exam itself, and scored an average score of 4 or higher on a 5-point scale. And most schools in Gwinnett average about a dozen students a year who attain that level from the College Board. And last year we had 51 students attain that level, and their pictures are out on the college wall, and you probably will see them. That includes 45 seniors and 6 juniors who attain that level. And our curriculum is what drives it. And I'll keep coming back to that. The third component that distinguishes us from every other high-quality, world-class Gwinnett County public school is our internship program. And this relates directly to the business school partnership. So what happens is our students come in 9th grade, and they're supposed to have exited 8th grade and already filled out, this is what I want to be when I grow up, due to the Bridge Bill legislation. But our students are trying to figure it out, and many of our students come and they don't know, do I want to be an engineer or do I want to be a doctor? Because if I'm not one of the other, my dad is going to kill me, okay? But they really need a chance to explore those careers, not just before they pay college tuition, before they decide the electives that they want to take in the 11th and 12th grade. So our 9th graders participate in quarterly speaker series. It's basically like career day at a higher level. So once every 9 weeks, and we just had one last Friday. We get about 20 or 30 representatives from business, industry, higher education. By the way, we'll be glad to take your card before you leave today. And they come and address a room full of students. We had an FBI agent actually in this room last Friday addressing about 60 students, explaining this is the career path, this is the education levels you need, this is the things that you can do to help you, and this is what it's like doing this job. And that really helps our ninth graders, and they get to sign up for the categories of jobs and careers that is of interest to them. In the 10th grade, our students participate in really a job readiness program. In the fall, we teach them how to write a resume, how to dress for success, how to carry on an interview, a lot of the soft skills that students graduate missing today. In the spring, we do a job visit where we take buses and load all of our sophomores up for half a day and do site visits. We go to Cisco and NCR and Georgia Tech and Emory and the Yerkes Lab and a variety of places where the students actually get to go and do a walkthrough of these locations for about 3 hours, and they get to see this is what we have to offer. And that leads then to the junior year, where our students have to complete a semester-long internship, which we call the Junior Fellowship Experience, or JFE. And they can do that in the summer before the junior year by doing 10 hours a week for 7 weeks, or they can do a semester of their junior year, either fall or spring, and do approximately 5 hours a week for 14 weeks. So they get about the same amount of contact hours. The students who do it in the summer usually do so because they don't want to give a slot in their course schedule, or they want to be in Athens all summer, or they want to be downtown all summer, or they want to be in Savannah or Macon, and the transportation kind of dictates where they go. And these students actually do real internships. They work in labs and research labs, they work at desks, they work in offices, they work in manufacturing facilities. They work side by side with computer programmers and coders and web developers and accountants and attorneys. And so that junior year, the students really get to dabble in what it's like to do the particular career that I think I want to be when I grow up. And then the senior year, our students complete a year-long internship experience, which we call the senior capstone experience. And it truly is a capstone experience. It's year-long. Some students continue the same placement they had the junior year because they really know they want to be an electrical engineer. Other students switch fields completely, and they write their senior research paper about the career that they're exploring. So really it's a vertically integrated 4-year partnership program, and we could not do it without our business partners. Many of them are displayed out in our atrium, and we have a big long list that we can provide. But we could not do that without our business partners. You know, we sit right next to the Cisco campus, and that's already been mentioned. They are a huge partner of ours, as is NCR. Georgia Tech is a great partner of ours. But we could not offer this curriculum without the partnership. That is really, really critical. As a charter, we have goals that are written into the charter. So I want to share those with you briefly. One of those is our 4-year partnership program, and it's written into the charter, and it's important, and that's why we use it. Another one is that we want to graduate 100% of our students. So the students that go to our school for 4 years, we want to graduate all of them. And so the students who decide to leave our school and go back to their neighborhood school, we hope graduate in 4 years from a neighborhood school, and many of them do, but we have a goal of 100% graduation rate. The other thing that we do is we track longitudinally our graduates. So we don't wait and then send them a survey 10 years later. We record a variety of data about what colleges they applied to, what colleges they got accepted to, and then the real work starts, because then we start tracking where did they actually go, what major did they choose, and then what was their first job out of school. And we're tracking the STEM effect. We're trying to see what STEM fields, you know, did we have a school effect on the path of these students? And we track all that electronically, and we do follow-up surveys and information. And our original graduating classes were small enough so that we could have a one-on-one contact with our students. Our staff here, we have about 97 total employees on site. 55 of those are teachers. And just to touch on the teacher quality and level of preparedness that was mentioned earlier, I'll give you some examples. Our AP Bio program, since it's required in 10th grade, has 5 staff members that teach AP Bio, but our lead AP Bio teacher is Dr. Kramer. And she's not Dr. PhD, she's Dr. MD. She went to med school. So that's who we have leading our AP Bio team. We teach forensic science. And our forensic science teacher used to work in the GBI crime lab. So they don't draw a chalk outline and play whodunit. They actually collect fiber samples and analyze them, and they figure out if you did it or really or not. Our engineering program, one of our marquee programs is our PhysEng program, which is physics and engineering taught together in a block format to 9th graders. And we have 5 staff members who work in that rotation in 9th grade. One of whom is leaving with me later this afternoon to go to Baltimore to present at the NCSSMST conference about our PhysEng program. The other 4 teachers in that program, and I'll just rattle off real quickly, PhD in engineering from Clemson, master's in engineering from Clemson, master's in engineering from Johns Hopkins, and physics degree from Emory. So those are the other 4 people that are teaching along with our original teacher who has been here all 8 years in our PhysEng program. The quality of preparedness, we are fortunate in who we are able to hire and attract. And the question about what can principals do, I'll wash their car if I have to keep them here. I promise you that. Our school's built on 3 pillars, and you may be able to see them on our crest. Biosciences, which we address with our required AP biology curriculum, but also in our electives. The last elective we added, science elective, is advanced genetics. And students actually get to go deep in genetics. Our center pillar is engineering. We are a STEM school, and the E stands for engineering, and every student who comes here completes a CTAE pathway in engineering. They complete the foundations, concepts, and applications courses in sequence by the end of their 10th grade year. So everybody completes an engineering pathway, and then most of them complete a second or a third one along the way as well. And then our other area, which I want to mention, is emerging technology. That's one of our pillars. And that's the one that is the hardest to define. What is emerging technology? Because it might change. And we've talked about coding and computers and those kind of things, and that certainly relates to that. U.S. News & World Report's top 10 jobs that came out for 2014, 8 of the top 10 are in the computer field. 8 of top 10 are in the computer field. The building that we sit in has 5 stories, and the top floor is not finished. It's just a concrete slab. So our building is built for 1,200 students, but when that top floor gets completed, we can hold about 1,500 students, 9 through 12. And so we don't know what's going to go up on that floor yet. What I think is going to go up on that floor is going to be related to our area for growth, which is IT, computer science, coding, programming. And our students who do well do what was mentioned earlier, which is they take robotics class and they take AP computer science and they can build the robot and then they can program the robot. That's when they take it to a really high level. My father was an industrial arts teacher, and so by the time I was ready to drive a car, I knew how to work a bandsaw and a table saw and a lathe and everything else in the shop. And you need to know how to do that, but you also need to know how to do the math that programs the computers that are now doing the cutting and the manufacturing. And our students can do that too. If you go down on the tour that takes you through our robotics lab, you might see a 3D printer, or you might see a CNC router that our students know how to use and use daily in their curriculum. So the thing that makes our school is the curriculum. And we support that as much as we possibly can, and it's not easy. It's very, very rigorous. Our 9th graders take 8 classes on a 7-period school day unless they're in a fast math track or the honors band or honors orchestra. We have some 9th graders that take 10 Carnegie units in the 9th grade. 10. And we do that because some of them want to take 10. You know, they don't want to say, why am I taking 6? Because that's all we offer. But I want to take a 7th, and we try to provide that opportunity to the students that want to do that in a STEM kind of way. Let me just kind of lay the details about our tour, and then when we come back, any question that you want to ask, we'll try our best to answer. Okay, if it relates to the lottery or curriculum or something that you saw or something about one of our teachers, that's great. I will tell you that our students are dangerous, because they all have laptops. And if you get close, you might get whacked with a laptop bag if it's a class change or in the cafeteria. So they're carrying a book bag, a laptop bag, and sometimes a lunch bag. So that's the only way that they would be a hazard to you. Okay? But what we'll do is we'll go on a tour. It's about 5 minutes to 11, and so we will be back in here as close to 11:30 as possible for some debriefing and some Q&A, and I'll be glad to provide as many A's as you have Q's.
wrap up this part of the program with a debriefing of what you saw. So if you have questions, as Mr. Bray said, he will try to give you answers.
Thanks.
Or he'll make them up, right?
I'll make them up. Well, thank you for returning. I want to tell you a couple of things and then give you a chance to ask any question that you want to ask. Some things that popped up in the yellow group as we were walking around really had to do with, kind of how our lottery works and those kind of things. I'll be glad to answer those kind of questions. But let me just also tell you, our staff members are in the back. So if you are interested in a partnership in some way, or you have a cousin or a brother-in-law or a spouse who you think will be a great person for a partnership, the person to contact really is Ms. D'Antonio. So she's in charge of our partnership program. So if you have a lead on anybody who wants to be on our big board outside, we would love to talk with them and explore that. If your organization or group or somebody at your church wants a tour of our school, we do those. And Ms. Lovett in the back is kind of the point person that facilitates those tours. We had a group visiting from Tennessee yesterday that we toured around. And what we try to do is follow the Spider-Man mantra. With great power comes great responsibility. With great facilities comes the expectation that you're going to have a great outreach program and help the schools that aren't STEM certified that want to become that, and really flatten the learning curve for other people. And so we partner directly with about 20 of Gwinnett County's 130 schools now in a very formal way, whether it's we go and run their STEM night, or we send our Spanish Honor Society over to facilitate their ESOL outreach. So we do lots and lots of things like that within our district, but we are just one school of 950 kids and 55 teachers. So Gwinnett County is really big, as I mentioned. So let me just take a moment. I think we have about 10 minutes or so, maybe a little more, and I'll try to answer any question that you have. It can be facilities related, curriculum related, or anything that you want to. Yes, sir.
You seem to have a very diverse population.
Right.
Do you have the statistical breakdown?
We do. What you saw when you walked around is Gwinnett County Public Schools. We are roughly 20% white, 20% black, 20% Asian, as in Korean, Japanese, Chinese Asian, about 20% Asian as in Indian, Pakistani Asian, and then the other 20% are Hispanic and mixed. So we are roughly 1/5 of everything, which is pretty close to what Gwinnett County is K through 12, honestly. And we're about 38% free and reduced. 38% free and reduced.
Just a side note, I will say I was impressed with the classes in the physics class and the engineering, but also your scheduling, the way you've kind of scheduled the blocks to allow more lab time.
Right.
To make sure, and that's essential, I think. So I just want to say that's something I know I can copy, but something I just appreciate what you're doing things.
When the curriculum was designed, we looked at lots of schedules. We looked at a 4x4 block, which offers you the chance for 8 Carnegie credits a year. We looked at a traditional 6-period school day. We looked at a block overlay. We looked at some hybrid schedules. And what we settled in on is what we offer, which is we have a 7-period bell schedule from 8 to 3. We have to start a little bit later than the regular Gwinnett schools because half of our students ride the bus to get here, so they actually have to take a bus from their street corner to their neighborhood school and then get on the Maxwell bus, which is bringing all the kids to the morning technical program. So our kids that ride the bus ride over, and by the time they can get here and have breakfast, we start at 8, end at 3. So we have 7 periods during the day, plus a lunch, plus a guided study period. So there's a 7-period bell schedule, but our classes are only 47 minutes. The school where I came from before I was here, the traditional school, our classes were 56 minutes, and ours are 47. That 9 minutes a day is a lot of instruction time. And what we try to do is to make up for that with creative scheduling in the classes that are blocked. For example, our 9th graders take chemistry and language arts, and they do them every other day. So our 9th grade students have 7 periods, but their chemistry and language arts classes work like an AB block. And what happens is that saves the 6 minutes of transition time between classes. So we recapture that 6-minute class change and put it back into the instruction. So thank you for that observation.
Hello. Tina Shaw, STEM Chicks Atlanta.
Yes, ma'am.
I grew up in Houston, Texas, where there was a magnet school program where you would actually have to apply to the high schools to gain admission. Do you plan on going to that kind of model, or is it going to be lottery for some time?
That's a great question. If you were the family of a child who didn't get in, you would have wanted us to already gone to that model. And honestly, we have board members in the room from our school district who entertain that question all of the time. You know, the thing that our superintendent and our board does not want is an elitist school, and that's not our mission. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to improve public education for everyone. And so right now, we operate as a charter school. So our 2 entering criteria to get a lottery number are you have to be on track to be promoted to the 9th grade by the end of your 8th grade year, and you have to live in a Gwinnett County attendance zone such that you could attend a Gwinnett County school without having to move or fill out any paperwork. And so right now, those are the only 2 criteria. We anticipate our lottery registration process went live Monday of last week, November the 3rd, and it will stay open until the end of January, and then the lottery drawings February the 9th. We fully anticipate about 1,400 balls in the hopper this year. We had just under 1,300 last year. There is no rule, you know, parents, faculty members can't bring their children. I can't bring my children. If one twin gets in and one twin doesn't, they can't come. Everybody has their own number, and that's the way we operate now. And that's the way that we started, and I mentioned we're in year 8 of a 10-year charter. But every year, since the very first year, there has been discussion about should there be entrance criteria. Maybe not exclusive criteria where you can't come unless you're good enough, but criteria that would ensure that our rigorous curriculum is something that's manageable. 9th grade's hard enough as it is, but when you come here and you have to take 8 Carnegie credits, including physics and chemistry, it's pretty tough. So what we've tried to do during the tenure of our charter is to be super transparent. We are what we are. We try to be really good at it, and that's what we do. And so we have 3 parent information nights. The first one was last Thursday. We have them in the cafeteria. We had about 700 parents of 8th graders, and we just tell it like it is. We just try to communicate. You know, your child has to pass AP Calculus to graduate from our school. If your 8th grader is sitting in pre-algebra, they're not going to get there because they're 6 years away from that penultimate exit class, and high school's 4 years long. So we just try to be transparent and help families make the best decision for them. And I can't speak to what's going to happen when the charter runs out. That's the board and Mr. Wilbank's decision. But that's the way we operate now. And but it is unfortunate when you know an older sibling comes here and they go to MIT, which happened last year, and the younger sibling in 8th grade is actually more advanced than that one, and his lottery ball didn't get drawn. So those are the ones that make me just kind of hurt because I know that those students, you know, would thrive in our environment. And that the consolation to that is the 18 traditional high schools in Gwinnett County offer the most robust AP curriculum that we offer. You know, they don't offer 3 math classes beyond AP Calc like we do, but they do offer the Georgia Tech 2 class and so forth. So you can't go wrong in any Gwinnett County public school, and we just try to go right for the kids who make it in the lottery. Anybody else?
I'm Julie Palmer from Piedmont College,
yes,
and we have been fortunate enough to receive the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship to train STEM experts to become STEM teachers. Can you tell me the components that you think that we could take away from here that would apply to any school? As Mike articulated, we serve populations of people who might not even have technology in the home to use computers. So what are the components of this high school that you think we could take away to more traditional high schools, particularly in areas that are less fortunate?
That's a great question. And while the panel was talking, I was thinking in my head about replication. You know, and we often go to conferences or professional training and we sit and we like it, but what we're really thinking is, how can I take this and apply it to where I am every day? And that's a really great question. I'll just talk through 2 points. Number one of those is the school leadership matters. It matters in a huge way. And just on a personal note, I was a physics teacher for 13 years. I love being in the classroom. I love teaching physics. I taught at Berkmar High School, which is just a few miles down the road. And I didn't want to leave the classroom. And in 2007, when the job opening for this school came open, I read it and I thought, okay, that's what I'm doing. I want to be the principal of that school. And so it took me a while to get here, but I think the school leadership and their passion and preparation for the job is a non-negotiable. That's one thing. And the quality of the leader often determines the success of things that you try to replicate. The other thing that I would speak to, I think, is what was mentioned earlier with the gentleman's question. I think his name was Mr. Green, perhaps. He asked about what can the businesses do to truly partner with the schools. And in Gwinnett, 5 of our traditional schools have gone to kind of an academy model. And what that's going to do is let the students not just pick which CTAE pathway do I want to kind of focus my classes, but there's going to be an internship component with a lot of that curriculum. And so I've talked about our curriculum a little bit, and not everybody can do the same curriculum. But what you probably can take back to your location is the value in being intentional in the sequencing of the 9 through 12, or if you're a superintendent in the room, the K through 12 experience of students. And where they start determines where they end up. You know, often the decision about what math my child studies in 3rd grade will determine if they make it to AP Calculus or not. And that's a lot of stakes on a 3rd grade, you know, math test. So I think the replicability part is have the leadership of your school or your district or your governing board be all in. And then the second thing is really make your school a community. And that's what we've had to do here because we don't have a geographic cluster. You know, our kids come here from everywhere, and they then have to go home from everywhere. So it's not like I can partner with the churches because the kids all go to those churches, or I can go to the businesses because the kids all work in the business. We are different. We are a county-wide school, and so we have focused really, really hard on school community, and the business partnership is one aspect of that. I grew up in a one high school county, and so, you know, everybody shut down on Friday nights and everybody was at the football game. Well, we don't work that way, you know. But we've tried to tap into those kinds of experiences that our partnership with businesses or our outreach programs or the people that know our staff members can really give us. And that's the part I think that you can replicate.
2 things. I snagged you in the hall to ask you about how the kids get in and is there anything beyond 9th grade as an admission point.
Right.
So I think you should share that with everybody. But I
Sure.
also wanted to ask you what kind of characteristics you look for in the people who come here to teach, for your teachers?
Those are 2 really, really good questions. The first one's easy, and that is students who don't get in the lottery or come at the beginning of their 9th grade year, that's your only window. So we take 350 rising 9th graders, and the big reason that they can't kind of transfer into our school after that is because our 9th grade here doesn't look like 9th grade anywhere else. It's bigger, more, faster, and different. And so I was the curriculum AP at a traditional school before I came here, and I would always just beat my head against my computer every time a 9th grader came back to my school from GSMST because I would have to work magic to get them in a course schedule that allowed them to earn some credits to be back on a 4-year track. So that's why it's high stakes for us, every 9th grader that leaves. That's why we try to be really transparent in what we're offering. And so for that reason, in addition to all of the things we do with our 9th graders in terms of peer leadership, school citizenship, and all of those kind of things, somebody asked before we went on the tours, can I leave my laptop in here? And I said, sure. We've never had a cell phone stolen in 8 years. You know, if you leave something in the bathroom, the kids are going to turn it in. And it's not necessarily because of who their mom and dad are or how much money they make. Really, it's the culture of our school. They would be frowned upon. When our students speak in our parent information nights, what they often say is the most popular kid in school here is the smartest kid, you know. And so that's just kind of the culture of our school. And we're very fortunate and we pay attention. We don't take it for granted. But all of that leads into why it would just be disadvantageous for the individual and the cohort of students if we let kids come in after the 9th grade or after the 10th grade. The second part of your question had to do with what do we look for when we hire teachers? And I kind of got to go through that this past spring because we hired 8 brand new faculty members this past year, most of due to growth. We did have one faculty member leave, but we grew in a lot of areas. And so there's a couple of things you look for, and that is, number one, by far to me, is instructional quality. That determines the success of your school, is what's happening between the bell to bell. Our AT&T person spoke to her first year teaching in the classroom, and her administrator didn't even address the instructional quality. Was worried about dress and handing out football tickets. So that's the first thing, is can you teach? Can you really teach? Can you get kids to learn? That's number one. The second thing, I think, would be high energy and a passion for education. We have the benefit of being able to attract highly qualified on paper folks. One of our PhD engineering teachers is going to go out on maternity leave at the beginning of second semester. She's going to be out for about 12 weeks from January till spring break. So we were trying to hire a sub for her. And we just didn't want anybody off the sub list because her class schedule is 2 classes of biochemical engineering, 1 class of nanotechnology, 1 class of alternate and alternative energy, and then 1 class of our SCE students, our senior capstone students. That's her class schedule. Would you want to come and sub in her classroom? Okay, so we reached out to Georgia Tech and to Emory, and last Friday we had a 4th-year PhD chemistry student who had always wanted to be a teacher and had gravitated from, I really don't want to be in a research lab. I'm going to finish my PhD, but man, I really like the idea. He'd been tutoring at Paideia downtown, and he came and interviewed, and he was fabulous. That's the kind of people we hire, is people who are prepared and who have a passion for, as Beth said, I think, making a difference. And that's what I look for. Yeah, and if they're fresh out of college, and we hired one last year to be a math teacher, then so be it. If they're 3-time career changers, you know, with grown children, then that's okay too. So those are the 2 criteria, I think, that are top 2 for me.
Actually, piggybacking off of that, I'm curious about whether you all follow the same teacher salary schedule as Gwinnett County, and then whether your teachers you're hiring them directly for your school, or if it's the Gwinnett County teacher pools, or the employees of Gwinnett or of the school.
Those logistics are important. We operate exactly like every other Gwinnett County high school. The difference is our charter predicates our curriculum, which I've spent some time talking about. And then we have an advisory board that meets once a year that kind of co-governs with our school board. So we are a district-sponsored school, so we adhere, you know, we follow Gwinnett County Board of Education's decisions, policies, and everything else. But our governing board, and there's 1 or 2 people in this room who actually have participated in that, actually kind of help us with the direction, where we are, what improvements we make, and they were critical getting our curriculum designed. So in terms of the pay scale and tenure and retirement, working here is just like working at Duluth or Peachtree Ridge or any other school in Gwinnett. Remind me of the second part of your question, I'm sorry.
So yeah, your teachers are hired from the Gwinnett teacher pool?
Yes, and so what happens is, because of our charter, we have a little bit of flexibility in initial certification. So I can hire a teacher who comes, and Gwinnett really can do this under their IE squared contract with the state, but if I want to hire a PhD engineer who has never taken an education class and never even sat for the GACE, what I have to do is say, hey, I want to hire you. Your job offer is conditional on 2 things. Number 1, you take the GACE in your area and you pass it. And number 2, you commit that sometime within your first 3 years, you're going to complete Gwinnett's teacher prep program, which we call Teach Gwinnett. So we have 2 staff members in that right now who are getting certified, but they don't have to already be certified or highly qualified to start here. Okay.
How about a round of applause for Mr. Bray?
Well, thank you.
Mr. Kelly, would you close us out, please?
Before you sit down, I just want to thank you for what you're doing. Absolutely. It's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you for being here.
Well, I only have one word. After having sat through this meeting earlier with this excellent panel, and then taking a tour around this wonderful campus, that word is wow. Was it awesome or what? Let's again thank Mr. Gray for opening his doors, and his team of volunteer tour guides. You know, you see situations and you experience things that really make an impact on you. And I think it's very hard for any of us leaving today to say this has not been an impactful day. You know, we hear a lot and read a lot about things that are not working. It's very refreshing and pretty amazing to see something working as well as it's working here. So again, I hope that you all have felt this has been a great investment of your time. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the staff of GPEE for planning this and doing it at a great level for execution. So let's give them a round of applause. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you, but also to say that education clearly is important to our community. Mr. Mandela had a saying. He said that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. And I truly believe that every day, folks who are touching kids and having the responsibility for teaching them are incredible assets to our community, because that is the future generation in which hopefully we, as moving on to retirement, and I hope to do that one day, be able to be proud that we're leaving our country in good hands and know that we will continue to flourish as a nation. So again, thank you for coming, and I appreciate you being here.